Who remembers the days of complaining about a fourth quarter road win over the New England Patriots? That was just a week ago, Dave Hyde, and now the Miami Dolphin fan base, they've got something to cry for. Did your parents ever tell you that, Dave? I'm going to give you something to cry for. Dolphin fans, they got plenty to complain about, considering their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, is out with a rib injury. The coaches got embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills in that 35-0 loss. The general manager and all his moves have to come under question, considering this roster doesn't even look capable of competing with the AFC East reigning champions, Josh Allen and the juggernaut Buffalo Bills. Well, Dave, the Dolphins are 1-1. Is it time to panic?
Yeah, where's the button? I'm looking for the button, Omar. Look, 2 games isn't a conclusion. We all know that. It's not a season. But when you see such glaring issues as you've seen, certainly in week 2 and started in some of them in week 1 with the offensive line, you better be hitting the panic button. You better be saying, okay, we better find answers immediately or the season's going to get sunk. So in that context, yes, it's time to panic. There's plenty of time left in the season, but you better get some answers. Definitely.
But Dave, the Buffalo Bills are the reigning AFC champs. A lot of people consider them the cream of this conference, right up there with the Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Allen would be 7-0 if Charles Clay didn't drop an end zone touchdown pass. Are the Dolphins just not in the Bills' league right now?
Look, for the last 3 years, they haven't been in their league. Part of that's by design. A lot of it's by design. You had the Dolphins on this massive rebuilding plan. This was the game at home in September that you said, okay, this is going to be a coming out party. Maybe not win, but you're going to play them hard because a lot of the young answers should be on the path to developing into wins at this point. And this was a statement. A statement by the Bills that we're still, the king of this division, and a statement by the Dolphins of, maybe we're not as far along as we would have hoped at this point.
Yeah, to me, it was a game where there were a lot of miscues in terms of we had more than a dozen, probably 16 negative plays in terms of penalties, drop passes, 6 sacks allowed, personal fouls. A drop punt. Those are all opportunities where this team squandered a chance to make it a competitive game. Miami had 4 red zone opportunities in the first half and walked away with a goose egg, 0 points, Dave. There were a lot of fourth downs where they should have kicked field goals and just taken the points where they didn't do that. And I understand that Brian Flores is an aggressive coach, but you clearly were struggling and needed a little bit of positivity. To me, though, even though there were a ton of execution issues, I think that it was an issue of coaching. They just got out-coached drastically by Leslie Frazier and Brian Daboll. And the question is, how do you counter? How do you adjust? And especially, how do you do it without your starting quarterback who's now sidelined with rib injuries? Dave, how concerned are you about the rib injuries? Tua was just diagnosed with a set of broken ribs. How concerned are you about his health and, more importantly, his durability?
Well, his durability is the issue. The concern isn't so much going into Vegas and losing or winning that game because Tua won't be there. The concern is as it's been in this whole rebuild, okay, where are you going with this now? One of the questions of the Tua was durability. As you just mentioned, that's the key word coming out of college. Before you get to his talent, okay, before we even have a debate over there, is he going to be on the field enough? Okay, and that was a question at Alabama with a couple ankle surgeries to heal sprained ankles and obviously the big surgery on his hip. And here we are, 11 starts. This is his second injury. Okay, we're making him miss games. So no great surprise when he had durability issues in college. You come into against bigger, faster players, and you're still a smallish quarterback, and you don't have great speed to escape. Look, he took a big hit, but I've seen Ryan Tannehill get up from big hits. I've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick get up from big hits. Now the question is, how much time is he going to miss? And What does that mean for this season?
Yeah, it's so much better that it's a rib injury as opposed to a shoulder injury. This is something that he can heal from. He'll be back in probably 3 to 4 weeks. I'm sure he can rush it and play with a flak jacket. But are you going to play with injections every week to manage pain, especially with this offensive line, Dave? I think that's
and with injection, you're talking. They said ribs plural. How many ribs? We don't know, but. Then you get into, you're not just doing one rib, and then you get into what happened to Tyrod Taylor, like with the deflated lung. I mean, there's a lot of issues there when you say shooting up in that area of the body.
Absolutely. I think it's a situation where you have to proceed with caution. Now, let's not proceed with caution and tackle some of these questions for X's and Omar. Dave, why don't you ask the first one?
All right, Omar. Comes from John. How does Chris Grier still have a job with all his O-line draft busts?
Yeah, that's a good question, considering all the resources that Grier has used, not even factoring in all the other executives that have been in charge, like Mike Tannenbaum or Jeff Ireland. This offensive line has been rebuilding for 2 decades and has only gotten it right in 2 years, 2008, 2016, which happened to be the years that they made the playoffs. Right now, if we're going to look at this offensive line, the Dolphins use a lot of resources in the 2020 draft and 2021 and even 2019 because Michael Dieter's part of that class. And none of them have panned out. If we're going to be playing a game of spades, we've got a handful of possibles. No books, no definite count-ems. There's no aces in there. There's no spades in there. No high cards. No, you just got a couple of queens and maybe a king, but you're not holding the ace if we're going to talk spades. Austin Jackson, to me, is the linchpin of where I am with Chris Grier's drafting ability. Austin Jackson was as a first-round pick. It was a reach. It was probably the 5th or 6th best offensive lineman. There was a run on offensive lineman early in the draft, but they still took him at the 18th selection. Problem I have with that is, right now, he's struggling bad. And this isn't a surprise to you. You saw him struggle in training camp. You saw him struggle in the exhibition season. You saw him struggle in the joint practices. He made Andrew Van Ginkel look like an elite player. And now that we're watching him against real NFL offensive linemen, he's just a guy. Now, the question is, can he improve, or does he need to move inside to guard? And that's something that's on coaching, because right now, that's not a Chris Grier decision.
Yeah, I wrote a column this week about Chris Grier, and the idea being it's time to quit looking down at the players and look up at the guy who's making the decisions. Because look at the 2020 draft, okay? You got Tua, durability issues coming into play. You got Austin Jackson at left tackle, really struggling, called out by his coach to tell you how much he was struggling. And then the 30th pick, and then they trade down to the 30th pick, Noah Igbinoghene, cornerback, not even active, didn't play as a rookie. So if you were going to go down this road of building through draft picks, in fact, trading your best players for draft picks, you got to hit on those draft picks. And these look like two in big trouble and one with Tua in. We're not even getting to the talent now because we can't get them on the field. And so, it all lands at the feet of Chris Grier. All the glory, as I wrote at the start of this, he's got a chance to go in the Hall of Fame if he hits on this and has a lights out draft, because he's got so much opportunity here. But it also has a chance to, in 3 years, we'll be saying, Chris Grier didn't get the job done, just like so many general managers before him, and even worse, because they've sacrificed really 2 seasons to get to this 3rd season.
Diego asked a good question. Is the problem that they drafted poorly, or are they failing to coach up this offensive line, Dave?
Yeah, that's a real valid question. At the start in training camp, I was talking to Jimmy Johnson, and he said the most important assistant offensive line coach, because he's the only guy, from the standpoint that he's the only guy who's more important than your players. He can make your players better and make a line out of mismatched pieces look good. And so, this is Brian Flores' fourth offensive line coach in 3 years. We know he fired one. If you remember the history, 4 days into his first training camp, he fired his first coach. It took Don Shula like 3 decades to fire a coach. But anyways,
didn't retain John Bonamego. Then hired I don't even remember his name. Last year's offensive line coach that came with
Marshall.
Steve Marshall, and then promoted his underling in Lemieux Jean-Pierre, who I like in theory, but it's all about coaching players up and players getting better. And right now, you're not seeing that. I think Robert Hunt is probably the only guy that you're seeing take that next step in development. But really, to me, the issue is, do you have a set of quality offensive tackles? And right now, with Jesse Davis playing on one leg and with Austin Jackson struggling the way that he is, my answer to that question would be no. And right now, you've got to experiment with that offensive line, and you have to consider Liam Eichenberg.
All they've been doing is experimenting, Omar.
I haven't seen any changes made to a starting lineup yet. I'm waiting. I mean, yeah, there have been a change made based on injury, but they talk about, we're going to go into with the best 5 guys are going to get an opportunity to compete. When has Greg Mance been able to compete with Michael Dieter? When is Liam Eichenberg, is he going to get a legit chance to unseat Austin Jackson as that starting left tackle?
He is now, but you drafted Liam Eichenberg. This is it's hard to wrap your head around what happened here. They drafted up. They traded a 3rd-round pick to move up in the 2nd round and take him. And the idea is he's a plug-and-play right tackle. That was the philosophical idea of the front office and of the coaching staff. You get him into training camp, and all of a sudden, he's not your right tackle. He's your reserve left guard.
And I'm not saying that Liam is or isn't ready. I do agree with Brian Flores' start the best 5 and figure out a way theory. The problem that I have with it right now is it's pretty clear Austin Jackson should not be in your starting 5.
And let's be clear, I'm not saying Liam Eichenberg isn't going to have a great career. He might. I'm just confused by what's going on here. Okay, I'm not saying it's the coach, and all I'm saying is if you expend that draft capital for a tackle and you have a hole at right tackle, and that's the plan, that better work. Okay, and it hasn't worked.
If he's not better than Jesse Davis, God knows, got to a hurt. Let me. I'm not hopping off the Jesse Davis train, but Jesse Davis. This
has been a tough week for Omar. That was a tough.
This is Jesse's worst week in his NFL career, and it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Let's be fair. He had a knee injury. He came out of the game with a knee injury. Okay, I mean that's.
I'm not making excuses for him. He's been playing with that knee injury.
There's a line between making excuses and stating, okay, a guy's playing hurt. Okay, and he was playing hurt. So, Diego, excuse me.
Yeah,
Mr. Johnson wants to know: do you believe Godsey has bad habits from his Texans tenure, and they are showing in his play calling his first 2 weeks? Example being pass-heavy protection schemes.
When has the Dolphins not been pass-happy? When have the Dolphins not had protection issues? I really looked at that film, and I watched what the Buffalo Bills did, and Leslie Frazier, man, he doesn't get the props and respect that he's due, because that was a brilliant game plan in terms of how they attacked Miami. They put 5 on the line of scrimmage, no safeties deep. They said, we dare you to throw deep, and especially when it was the RPO. And the release valve for the RPO when you were getting pressure in your face is to run that slant. Well, they dropped a safety or a cornerback or a linebacker into the zone where Devontae Parker would be in for the slant. So that was taken away. And all these things needed to be read right after the snap. So even people say, there were protection issues. Well, an offensive line is trained to protect from inside out. They were protected from inside out. The pressure was coming from the edges, and Tua had no release valve, no hot routes. And yes, it was a complete bust and miscommunication, but it's hard for me to blame that on George Godsey. you were outsmarted. The question is, how did your counters work? Well, when they came up with counters, the Bills brought their counters to their counters. They put Mike Gesicki in the game. Then the Bills were blitzing packages again. They had to bring Mike Gesicki to the line of scrimmage, and we all know how Mike Gesicki pass blocks. It's struggle city. So it was just a recipe for disaster. Your game plan just got absolutely dominated. But it's hard for me to blame it on George Godsey because Eric Studesville is co-offensive coordinator. He's responsible for the game planning. And I think the game planning was more of a problem than the execution and then the play calling.
Well, I'm going to blame it on everybody, okay? If we're going to give Leslie Frazier credit and deserve credit, there's some subtraction that has to go on the other side of the ledger. And the Dolphins' game plan just wasn't very – you saw – we talked about this before. Brian Flores in the past year has come out fast out of the gates. The Rams game last year, they caused a turnover right away. The Chargers game last week in New England, they went right down the field the first possession of the start of the game and at half. That's telling you they're seeing some strategic advantage and they're taking use of it, just as the Bills did here. My question isn't just what the coaches, though, or what Leslie Frazier did. It's that Tua didn't see these blitzes coming off the corner, okay? And either that or the running back didn't hear that he should be going to block outside, because the running back on both plays where he gets sacked on the first two of the three plays, the running back stepping up to help block in the middle of the line, okay? If he goes outside and picks up the corner blitzer, then Tua has a little more time. But either Tua didn't see him or there was some miscommunication there. And so it was a complete breakdown. Coaching strategy, quarterbacking, hot reads on blocks. I mean, give credit to the Bills there. All right, time to return for Omar's favorite game. We haven't done this in a while, Omar. True or false? You know how the game's played. Ask a question, and we give you the level of truth injected into it. We'll start right off with Lisa, who writes for Our Turf Football. The Dolphins will have this offensive line issue settled by game 5. That's giving us 3 games from now, two filler games to come up with answers.
False. Absolutely false. They haven't had this issue settled for a decade. I keep thinking back. There was a game in 2016 where the offensive line struggled. I can't remember what the opponent was. But after that game, Adam Gase, the legend, Adam Gase, he fired 3 offensive linemen. He just quit. He just released them. These are high draft picks. Billy Turner, who's still a starter in the league. Jameel Douglas, who is still a player, contributor in the league. And then Adam Gase said, I've had enough. Fired them. You know what that birthed, Dave? The Unicorns. If you remember that unit, the last respectable offensive line this team has had. Yes, it was filled with first-round picks and players who were on the upper echelon of their status. And then Jermon Bushrod, who actually was a pretty good player in his prime. But something drastic has to happen here. And I don't think it's game 5 it's going to happen. I would say if they're going to fix this, we're looking at along the lines of game 9, game 10.
They have put so much into this. I just get do I have to go through the list again? One first-round pick, 2 second-rounders, 2 third-rounders, 2 fourth-rounders, a 6th-rounder, and I believe 3 7th-rounders.
Don't forget what they trade for him.
In various trades. And so it's like, just fix it. Okay, I'm tired. Just fix the problem.
Jesse asks, true or false, Myles Gaskin and the Miami Dolphins running back core should be a force to reckon with versus the Raiders?
I don't see it. That's a false. The running game hasn't been a force the first 2 games. I believe they 3.5 yards against Buffalo, 3.2 or something like that against New England.
3.4 right now on 43 attempts, Dave. 3.4.
Right, okay, so now Myles Gaskin has run for 5.3 yards. Okay, so he is that's very nice. So, but a force to be
nice.
Here's the problem with the phrasing of the question: a force to be reckoned with. No, they will not be a force to be reckoned with. Okay, and so right now you would just take a serviceable running game, right? A serviceable running game. You'd take that as a step forward.
The Raiders are allowing 4.8 yards per attempt. I think that this is a game where if you're going to run the ball, this is the prime opportunity, especially since you've got protection issues. Best way to protect your quarterback is run the football. And I'm a full supporter of run the ball 25 times and see what happens no matter what the score is.
Scottish Finns fans want to know, Omar, true or false, the Dolphins abandoned the rebuild too soon, going to a win-now mode too early?
It did surprise me a bit after the draft. Brian Flores talked to Peter King, and his sentiments were, this is our team. Here it is. And we're beautiful. We're ready. And I'm looking at that team and that roster like, word? I didn't see an offensive line. I didn't see an established run game. I didn't see a defense that could stop the run. And really, I saw a team that was leaned heavily on their defense primarily and heavily on their secondary and feasted off turnovers. How do you recreate that? I don't know. And a team that needed to live off the RPO. I think that they are not done rebuilding. I think that they have a ton of answers. There's still no pass rusher on this team. There's still no established run game. There's still no proven offensive line. Have we solved the question of the quarterback? Is this the best that we can do? So is this rebuild over? I think it's absolutely false that the rebuild is over. And they need to get back to rebuilding. I'm sad to say it, but this roster's not talented enough yet.
Where's the aspirin? Where is the aspirin? I cannot believe they've had 5 number 1 picks in the past 2 years. What Brian Flores was saying is those guys that we're going to win with or lose with are in the building now. Okay, the rebuild is over.
And how does Austin Jackson look?
As far as using massive draft picks, okay? That's what he was saying. Oh, our guys are here. We're going to win with these guys or lose with these guys, okay? But
Christian Wilkins is just nobody,
no owner has allowed any team to do something like this, where you trade away good players and say, give me draft picks. You won't get a franchise quarterback.
The Raiders did it.
When?
The Raiders traded away Amari Cooper and
okay. They had a quarterback. Nobody's done it like this, is what I'm saying. The whole plan of this was to get a quarterback. Okay. All I heard was
Watson's still sitting out.
even if we miss on these other players, we'll get a quarterback. Okay. And
Sean Watson's still winking, Dave. He's in the DMs.
Look, I've started the parade to get Deshaun Watson here this offseason, but at this, you cannot trade. Once all those legal things, that has to clear up. I have no idea how you can make a trade for him with all that hanging out there.
John Adams asked a good one. The Raiders D-line's going to eat like the Bills did, Dave?
Well, that's a good question in that they're going to try to. They saw what the Bills did.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, we can do that too. Get hungry, everybody. Here we come. And they do have look, Max Crosby, he was on Monday night against the Ravens. He was a fun guy to watch.
Pressure's going to be coming from the center. The quarterbacks of the Raiders aren't that great, but hey, they can blitz. Everybody can blitz. So it definitely, you're going to see, I think this is true, you're going to see the Raiders try to recreate a lot of those pressures that you saw the Buffalo Bills exert.
All right, Omar. Mike Best has a good one. Will Fuller playing on Sunday won't make any difference because the line doesn't give enough time to throw downfield. False.
I think that's false. If Will Fuller plays and he's in the right mindset, this is a guy who's shown you that he can take the top off the defense. He can occupy his safety. The question is, you got to pull the trigger quick, veteran enough and seasoned enough to see that. Hey, and Buffalo did this plenty. They had 7 in the box. They had 3 out wide. There was 1 safety deep. In those situations, you pick a side, you throw it deep, and you see what your wide receiver can do. Miami never pulled that trigger. Will Fuller gives you an opportunity to pull that trigger on one side. Jalen Waddle gives you an opportunity to pull that trigger on the other side. And somebody's got to eat underneath. So I think that this is a true. I'm going to go with true on this. Ricardo asks, true or false, Dave, this coaching staff is not interested in running the ball consistently.
Yeah, I'd say that that's false, that they're not interested in doing it. They're interested in whatever works, okay? And what they found, and look, part of it is as they got down further and further on Sunday, you saw them go away for natural survival reasons. They're trying to win Sunday, okay? But no, I think they want to run the ball. When you saw Brian Flores go for it on 4th and 2, now they threw the ball 3 times on those 4th and 2s. What does that tell you? It tells you that he's not trusting the offensive line and he's not trusting his back that we can go in and we can pound the ball running it up the middle or running it, period. And so I think there was your answer of they're not interested in running the ball. I just don't believe that they think they can.
Eric Stooksville is a very big on the run game. I think that's part of the reason why he's a co-offensive coordinator, to remind the team to stay balanced and stay consistent with the ground game. Gaskins, as we talked about, averaged 5.3 yards per carry. Salvon Ahmed has been a pass-catching threat. So I like the 2 backs. I just believe that this is a situation where they have to stay committed to it and stop straying from who they want to be. A.A. Gutierrez has our final true or false question. This year's Dolphins team has regressed significantly, and at this point, they will have a losing record.
It's too. They have regressed. You know what? They haven't answered any questions. Okay, the offensive line, I wouldn't say it's regressed. In more, other teams said, okay, you haven't improved that offensive line at all. We're going to attack. The Bills attacked it in a way the Patriots didn't, remember. If Bill Belichick thought that line was that bad, then he would have attacked it more. But instead, the Bills looked at the tape and they said, that line isn't very good. We're going to attack it, okay? So, I don't think they've regressed. The defense, still a force, okay? Still making timely turnovers. Josh Allen didn't have a good day against that defense, okay? And the Bills' offense, okay, 12 seconds into the game, it was 7-0. Or 12 seconds into Buffalo's possession, it was 7-0. So it's hard to say they didn't create big plays, but the defense of the Dolphins played well enough to win on Sunday. They just had no help.
Well, the mystery of who the Dolphins are starting is over now that Tua Tagovailoa has been ruled out because of his bruised ribs. The Raiders have their own quarterback injuries to address, with Derek Carr suffering an ankle injury in last Sunday's win over the Steelers. It's expected that Carr's going to play. He'll likely manage the week with rest and be out there because legitimately nobody wants to see Nathan Peterman replace Derek Carr. The question is, how effective will Carr be? He's right now leading the NFL in passing yards, Dave.
Yeah, he's had 2 over 400-yard passing games, okay? I don't think he can continue like this. I don't think he's that guy, okay? Certainly against a Dolphins defense that in the back is very good, and if they can get any pressure on Carr, especially with his limited mobility with an ankle injury, he's not going to throw for 400 yards. I feel I'm going to Vegas. I'm taking the under on 400 yards passing by Derek Carr.
Oh, bold move there, Dave. Let's talk about Miami's own quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett comes to the starting offensive line with this. He gets this weaponry. I got to be honest with you. I was actually impressed by Brissett during training camp. And maybe it's because I had low expectations. I didn't have that high of opinion of him as an NFL starter. And I saw him execute the offense. There really wasn't that much difference between Tua and Brissett, even though Brissett was using second-team weaponry. Brissett, as a starting quarterback, is 20.
Wait a second. Let me interrupt here, Omar. Just one question. all that hosannas for Tua in training camp in August. Oh, he's made all this progress.
Yeah.
Brissett was the same. He was the same, right? Every time I went out there, he was making the same passes and beating the cornerbacks on who can't hit, right? I mean,
absolutely, no question about it. 12-20 as an NFL starter for the Colts and the Patriots. Last week he completed 24 of 30 passes. 24 of 40 passes for 169 passing yards. Not that very good. One interception, was sacked 4 times. For his career, 59% completion percentage, Dave, 6,628 yards with 31 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. I like that. Nearly more than a 2-for-1 interception to turnover ratio. 6.5 yards per attempt, 10.9 yards per reception. Career passer rating of 83.2, 32 starts, Dave. Is there upside with Brissett?
Having just gone through Ryan Fitzpatrick, who, when he came in the door, I thought he was just a journeyman, just another guy. I'm willing to be surprised by Jacoby Brissett again, because I was surprised by Ryan Fitzpatrick. He showed something I didn't know was there. And you listen to Jacoby Brissett talk after the game on Sunday, he sounds like a quarterback. He sounds like a veteran. I'm not a backup. I'm a starter. I'm a starter, he said.
Wait for opportunity.
And just the way he carried himself, he acts the part. Now, his stats and his career speak for itself. He's going to get a chance to reassert himself there. I'm willing to be surprised.
Always a lot of injuries on that Colts team. Not to make excuses for him. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge Jacoby Brissett guy. Never have been. But I was pleasantly surprised during training camp. And I'm open and optimistic to be pleasantly surprised. Hey, we've done Brock Osweiler. I think we can survive Jacoby Brissett for a month.
I did John Beck. I've done them all. We've done them all, Omar.
Yeah, man. Tyler Thigpen, Dave. Matt Moore, good quarterback.
Matt Moore, the gunslinger. We've sent them all. Okay, our next question comes from Mark. Outside of Derek Carr, Henry Ruggs III, who else should the Dolphins defense be preparing for as a mismatch?
You know, I think this is a great opportunity for a Kenyan Drake revenge game. If you do recall, the Dolphins played the Arizona Cardinals where Kenyan Drake rushed for like 955 yards last season. But he was injured during that game and had to sit it out. The team traded him away, gave up on him, never believed in him, or kind of believed in him, but really didn't want to deal with him. And while he's not averaging that many yards right now, it's kind of been sort of a disappointing start for him with his new team. Drake is averaging. Let me find those numbers. Drake is averaging. He's gained 20 yards on 13 carries so far in the first 2 games. With Josh Jacobs sidelined by an injury, this is going to be Kenyan Drake's opportunity to showcase himself against his former team. And I love those revenge games. So he's definitely one guy to look out for. And then Zay Jones. I've always been a fan of Zay Jones going into the draft process. He's had some issues off the field. He's with the Raiders now. But I think that he's going to be a dangerous player for this team to have to contend and defend, especially if you have let's say Xavier Howard. I don't know how they're going to use Xavier Howard, but I would definitely put him on Henry Ruggs, sort of to take away that deep threat, that release valve that Derek Carr is looking for. So that means everybody else is going to have an opportunity to step up. And Hunter Renfrow, the slot receiver. This is going to be a game for Justin Coleman and Nick Needham to earn their keep.
Yeah, I you know what? I'll take a little issue with the question. Henry Ruggs III doesn't scare me. He's a 4.3 guy. He has speed. That's it. He's not. Let's not put him in the class of a Tyreek Hill who has speed, moves, games, all that. Jalen Waddle has speed, and like Ruggs came out of Alabama, but you see some electricity to his game. Henry Ruggs III can do one thing and get deep with his speed.
Top off the defense.
But I haven't seen anything in as a rookie or this year beyond that. So I'm not I'm not too scared of him. I'm not really scared of anybody except, and that, Kenyan Drake and all that. He could have his, monthly big game against the Dolphins. I get that. But consistently, we know who he is. Let's go to our next question to tell me so I can say who I am scared of. And Ryan wants to know, Eric Rowe only played 26 snaps last week. He didn't play well against Darren Waller, their tight end, last year. Does he have a chance to stop Waller this year? Here's the guy I'm scared of. This is the one guy who can beat you every Sunday.
Well, you got to pay him extra attention. I think last year's struggles for Eric Rowe against Waller, who had a ridiculous, I believe, 115-yard game, no touchdowns, was that Eric Rowe was solo dolo, no help. And while he is of the upper echelon when it comes to tight end stoppers, tight end defenders, there are some tight ends that you kind of want to get some help with. Whether it's a linebacker bracketing him or safety bracketing him, this is a player you got to take out of their passing game. Yes, it's going to be a challenge, especially with Henry Ruggs going deep, which is why I put Xavier Howard on Henry. I know Xavier doesn't have that kind of speed, but Xavier's a savvy cornerback where if you don't put the ball perfectly, he's going to give himself a chance to go get it.
If you look at the tape from last year's game, Eric Rowe had perfect coverage on Darren Waller on many of those catches. He did not play a bad game last year. Let's put this into context. Darren Waller was that good. Okay, he is that good. And that's why if you're a defensive coordinator, you scheme against Darren Waller. Okay, if this was Bill Belichick's New England Patriots, we would say just what you did, Omar. We're going to bracket him. We're going to do whatever it takes to take him out of the game. He is not going to beat us. We're going to make you play left-handed and beat us with one of your other players.
We are right on the same page. Beat me left-handed. Darren Waller right now leads the Raiders, 15 receptions for 170 yards, 1 touchdown. I'm taking him out the game, and I'm saying beat me left-handed. Yeah. We've seen Bill Belichick do that on many occasions with Miami, and it's time for the Dolphins to do the same. Robert has our final question. If this offseason was about getting Tua what he needs to be Tua, and it turns out the NFL's already caught up to the RPO and figured it out defensively, how much trouble could this offense be in the rest of the way, Dave?
Well, if you put it like that, if Tua isn't any good and the RPO's figured out, and you're asked the question, are they in trouble? They're in big trouble if that's the case. I mean, if I have to answer that question the way it's constructed, yes, they're in big trouble. Okay, that the hope of the Dolphins or a Tua fan is that there's a lot more to his game. And as I've said, his intangibles have to be off the charts because his tangibles aren't. His size, his speed, his arm strength, none of that impresses you as an NFL. So the hope still is, and that's why last week scared me, that he's not reading he's not seeing the defense, he's not, being able to move. I'm not to a final conclusion. These first 2 weeks though, they aren't good if you're saying Tua is going to be an elite or a top 10 quarterback. I didn't
say he was going to be it this year. I said 2023. But
23,
2023,
Omar, 4 years in.
We said elite. 2023. You said elite.
Oh, elite.
I expect a top 16 quarterback this year. Elite 2023.
I would take top 15 this year. I'm not seeing it through 2 games.
Yeah, no.
One game,
one bad pass against the Raiders. We saw him struggling to identify or his offensive line. Let's be real about it. His offensive line ain't helping the situation. So he's got great pocket presence. It don't matter how good your pocket presence is with that offensive line.
But Omar, the offensive line wasn't the problem the first series. It was Leslie Frazier's scheme and Tua not seeing a corner blitzing. Okay, the second series where he got hurt, you absolutely you can say that's the offensive line.
Yeah. Dave, I think the RPO still has life in it. I know there are counters to everything. There's a reason Alabama's been running shot all over college football with the RPO, pumping out NFL quarterback after NFL quarterback. There's a reason Oklahoma's killing college game right now with the RPO offense. It works. The question is, do you have counters to all the answers? And I think without Will Fuller, you didn't have all the counters to all the answers. And Leslie Frazier just outsmarted you. But it would also help if you had a physical running game, which you would have had if you selected a certain back, but you don't. You don't have it. And I'm not saying he's killing it with the Steelers, because he's not. But, it would help if you had a back who could pass protect. It just would.
Absolutely. Yes. And you know what? That's what teams are saying, too. That's what New England said. We're going to make your 195-pound running back take on our 235-pound linebackers and try to block them. And I agree with that.
Right now,
but let me also say the RPO, Omar, it works when you have 6 number 1 draft picks on your offense, like Alabama does. Okay? Now, I'm not saying I just haven't seen it work.
Dolphins have 3. Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Jalen Waddle. Dolphins have 3. And then a second-round tight end. Let's make it work. Let's not make these excuses. It works. I've become infatuated with the RPO offense. It's paint by numbers. It simplifies things for the quarterback. Okay, you got outsmarted by Leslie Frazier. Not everybody's Leslie Frazier. Let's make it work. Protect your quarterback. Find a sustainable run game. And then make the RPO work. Dave, time for predictions.
Well, remember I predicted the Dolphins would win the first 2 weeks. I'm going to Vegas. I'm not rolling the dice. I can't gamble in Vegas. I got to go with the Raiders, 24-17, I'm saying. And, the Dolphins have scored 17 points in 2 weeks. So I feel like I'm going out on the ledge for this offense by giving them 17 points in this game. But I got the Raiders. I can't pick against them. I don't even like the Raiders. I don't think they're that good a team, but I can't pick against them here.
I think the Raiders are riding a hot hand. I think Derek Carr's coming for his redemption. People overlook him, forget him, don't think he's an upper echelon quarterback, and I think he started off the season really hot. He's got the weaponry right now. His offensive line. Do you know, Dave, that Jermaine Elamore, well, I don't even know how to say his name, here with the Dolphins, didn't even survive the first round of cuts, is starting at right guard for the Raiders.
They're starting 3 reserves because of injuries. So let's not be talking about, you can't win without a brick. That's the NFL. Everybody loses players, especially on the offensive line.
So I'm going to predict a Raiders 24-17 win as well. Not to say that I'm disrespecting Jacoby Brissett, but I think until they solve this offensive line mishmash of mediocrity, it's going to be hard for them to win games. And I don't think this is a 1-week fix.
Revenge game for the Raiders, too, after remember the Fitzmagic game last. You think that's weighing on them.
That loss sent their season into a downward spiral.
Knocked them out, yeah, right. So
X's and O's brought to you by the Sun Sentinel. We are here every Wednesday at noon. Sorry for the hiccups and technical issues that we have. We'll definitely work harder to fix it. You can find X's and O's on any site that you find streaming. You can find podcasts and streaming. You can also find us on the YouTube channel for the Sun Sentinel. Always a pleasure, Dave. I will see you next week.